So you're coming to Rio de Janeiro. Which neighborhoods are the best neighborhoods to stay in and where should you stay? Let's go through it. Now, first and foremost, I highly recommend that you do not stay above that black line that I've put on the screen here, because this part of the city is very rough and this is where most of the crime is happening. Now, there are two exceptions I can think of. If you're coming to Rio for one day only and you're just coming to go to the Maracanã Stadium to watch a football match or a concert, you may wish to choose to stay somewhere near here. Secondly, if you want to stay near the airport because you have, for example, an overnight layover, I cannot think of any other rational reason why you would want to stay above that black line. So generally speaking, just do not do it. Now then, let's go below that black line and let's look at some of the neighborhoods that you could consider staying in. So firstly, you have this place that I've circled called Barra da Tijuca. Now this is quite an upscale part of the city. You're going to find a lot of gated properties and high-rise apartments here. I notice a lot of Uruguayans and Argentinians seem to have holiday homes here. This is a pretty safe part of the city. You're right by the beach and there are other nice nearby beaches too. And by the way, the water here in the sea is a lot less violent than the water in Copacabana or Ipanema, so it's better for swimming. However, this neighborhood is pretty far away from all of the action in Rio. So if you are coming to Rio for a week or 2 weeks, I would not recommend staying here, to be honest. This is more of a long-term neighborhood if you want to stay in Rio for a few months. I mean, if you do stay here, there is a metro station that connects you with the rest of the city and you can use Uber too. However, as I said, if you're staying in Rio for a short period of time, you're going to be spending a lot of money on public transport and Uber if you're staying here because you're so far away from the action. So short stays, I would not recommend here. Now, moving closer to the main part of Rio, you have this neighborhood here called Rocinha. You don't want to be staying here. This is a favela, so avoid this place. Now, moving a little bit further to the east, you now have one of Rio's top neighborhoods. This is Leblon. This is one of the best places you can consider staying in the city. You've got a lot of nice cafes, restaurants and bars here. You're right by the beach too. It is not the most buzzing, vibrant neighborhood in the city, but you just have a lot of nice places to eat and drink in. I highly recommend the bar called Bar Jobi or Bar Jobi. This is a Portuguese bar. They do good food here, good drinks here. There is also a nice Thai restaurant around the corner from here too, but expect higher prices here in restaurants and Airbnbs, hotels, because this is one of the safer, more glitzy parts of town. If you stay here, you are well connected by the metro. There are 2 metro stops in Leblon. You're not far away from the Rio Botanical Gardens. There is a shopping mall in Leblon too. As I alluded to earlier, it's not the most fun place to stay, but for safety and security and for good connectivity to the rest of the city, it is one of the best places you could think about staying in. Again, moving further to the east, you now have Ipanema, one of the most famous places in the entire city. Again, this is a very nice, very safe part of the city to stay in. Lots of good shops here. You have some very glitzy looking streets. You've got lots of great options for cafes, bakeries, restaurants, bars. It certainly is a little bit more buzzing here compared with Leblon. Also, of course, you are on the doorstep of one of the most famous beaches in Brazil, Ipanema Beach, and one of the best sunsets you're probably ever going to see in your life. You want to go to the Arpoador, go on the rock, and you see an incredible color to the sky during sunset. Likewise to Leblon, Ipanema is one of the most expensive parts of Rio. Accommodation, restaurants will not be cheap here. One of the top things that tourists do when they come to Rio is go to Ipanema for the hippie market on a Sunday. So Ipanema is one of the top places that you can stay in when you're in Rio, and it is connected by 2 metro stations too. Now again, if we move a little bit further to the east, you will see that there is this hill in Rio just next to Ipanema. Don't stay here. Again, this is a favela. Moving on, you now have probably Rio's most famous neighborhood, Copacabana. Of course, you have the world famous Copacabana beach here, and this is a very buzzing part of the city. In fact, when I was in Rio, this is where I stayed, and I do not regret it because Copacabana is full of really nice cafes and lots of bars, restaurants you can go to. When you walk a few blocks away from the beach, it is not as clean and as pretty and as glitzy as Leblon or Ipanema. It is definitely a little bit more gritty in Copacabana. I mean, this clip you see on the screen now, this is what Copacabana looks like. It did remind me a little bit of Athens in Greece. If any of you have been to the city centre of Athens, it's got that kind of grit to it. Not the prettiest place, but also not very dangerous. I did not feel that Copacabana was particularly dangerous. It felt like any other major city in the world. People are walking down the street on their phones. People are going about their day-to-day lives as they would in London or Barcelona, New York. Geographically, Copacabana has an excellent location. You've got Ipanema to the left of you. You've got Sugarloaf Mountain to to the right of you. You've got Christ the Redeemer and all of the other tourist attractions in the center of Rio to the north of you. You've got a few metro stations as well in Copacabana. Also in Copacabana, you're going to find that hotels and Airbnbs, apartments, restaurants, bars are marginally cheaper than both Leblon and Ipanema. However, the one annoying thing about Copacabana is the vendors on the beach or the vendors on the Copacabana promenade. They are pretty pushy when you're walking down the beach. People trying to sell you football tops or drinks, caipirinhas, beer. It does get a bit annoying. Additionally, if you evidently look like a foreign dude, don't be surprised if people try to sell substances to you when you're walking along Copacabana. Of course, you want to say no because that stuff is illegal and it could be dangerous. Now, a couple of Copacabana recommendations. If you're looking for somewhere to have some drinks and some food, I recommend this place called Botafogo Belmonte. It is actually a chain in Rio. There are a few of them scattered around the city. There's one in Copacabana. On the screen, this is the one in Copacabana. For a bit more of a down-to-earth vibe, I like this place here called Pavão Azul. This is a nice bar where you get some nice cheap drinks. Also, there is this place called Parada de Copa, and the funny thing about this bar is that they serve sandwiches with meat, pork, chicken, all that kind of stuff, but the common theme is they all have pineapple in their sandwiches, so that's an interesting thing. Now, you do want to be a little bit wary about where you stay in Copacabana, because near Copacabana, as you can see on the screen here, there are some favelas that I have circled that are not too far away. So always go on to Google Earth before you book your accommodation in Rio and just check whether or not you are in a favela, because you don't want to be staying in one. Now, if we move a little bit north, the next neighborhood that you could potentially stay in is Botafogo. So Copacabana, Ipanema, Leblon are very touristy parts of the city, but Botafogo is more local. You don't have anywhere near as many tourists in Botafogo as you do in those previous three neighborhoods. There are some nice pubs and bars scattered across Botafogo. It's definitely not as lively as Copacabana or Ipanema, and as far as I was concerned, it felt a little bit more rough than Copacabana, but there certainly is a bit of a hip vibe going on in Botafogo. If you do stay in Botafogo, I would recommend staying as close to the metro station as possible, just because it gives you good connectivity to the rest of the city. Also, there are some nice bars and restaurants and street food in the vicinity of the metro station there, so that's my recommendation. Price wise, accommodation, restaurants is pretty much bang on the same as Copacabana here in Botafogo, a little bit cheaper than Ipanema and Leblon. As I've kind of suggested before, if you can stay in Copacabana, I would recommend Copacabana over Botafogo, but if you can't get anything decent in Copacabana for accommodation, Botafogo is a suitable substitute. Now, if we move up a little bit further north, we head to the Flamengo neighborhood. To be honest, I did not visit Flamengo, so I'm not going to make too much of a comment, but Flamengo, I've heard, is kind of a continuation of Botafogo, more residential, not very touristy, less bars and restaurants compared with Botafogo. So if you are looking for something away from the crowds, a neighborhood where you don't have to deal with lots of tourists, you could consider Flamengo. So now moving on northwest to the next neighborhood, you could consider staying in Santa Teresa. Santa Teresa is the neighborhood where you find the famous Rio tram network, so you can take the tram up all the hills. It is a very hilly part of the city, so do be aware of that, but you do find some very nice old school colonial architecture here. If you do stay in Santa Teresa as well, you're not too far away from the Cosme Velho train station, and this is the train station that you can use to get the train up to Christ the Redeemer. Also, it's just worth noting that if you are going to take the train, you can in fact buy your Christ the Redeemer entry tickets at this Cosme Velho train station. You can get a complete round trip ticket, including your transport up to Christ the Redeemer and the entry into Christ the Redeemer, so you can do that. However, I would say if you're coming to Rio for 3 or 4 days, a short period of time, you're probably better off booking a city tour, a tour that takes you to all of the highlights of the city in one day. This is actually what I did, and this tour that you see on the screen here, it takes you to Christ the Redeemer, Sugarloaf Mountain, Maracanã Stadium, Celeron Steps, and it includes the entry ticket fees for all of those tourist attractions. So I would recommend doing this if you are only in Rio for a short period of time. I have put the link to this tour tour down below in the description of this video and also the comment section too, so do use that link if you are interested. There are also other links in the description and the comment section to other tours such as helicopter tours that you can do in Rio. Check those out too if you are interested. But getting back to Santa Teresa, one thing that I don't quite like about Santa Teresa is that there is not a nearby metro station. You can probably tell from this video that when I travel to big cities, I like to be near a metro station just because it gives me convenience. Also as well, Santa Teresa can be a little bit sketchy, especially at night time. I would not be walking around Santa Teresa at the night time, so something that you want to bear in mind. Zona Sul, Copacabana, Ipanema, Leblon definitely feel safer in my opinion. And lastly, the final neighborhood that you could look at staying in would be Centro, the historic center of Rio, the business center of Rio. And actually, I was really surprised how much I like Centro. Now, if we compare Centro in Rio to Centro in Sao Paulo, Centro Sao Paulo is horrible, disgusting, but Centro Rio is actually quite nice. It's very vibrant. You've got lots of restaurants and cafes. There's a nice atmosphere in the daytime at least. I have heard that at nighttime it does get a little bit more sketchy, but during the daytime you have museums and art galleries. You can go to the Museo do Amanhã, which is this famous science museum. It looks very similar to the City of Arts and Sciences Museum in Valencia in Spain, and that's because it was literally designed by the same guy. Now, the good thing about staying in Centro is you're getting cheaper accommodation prices, you're getting cheaper restaurant and food prices, not necessarily better quality than Copacabana or Ipanema, but definitely cheaper. You're also not too far away from the Lapa district, and this is where a lot of the nightlife in Rio happens. But be careful if you come here on a night out, because robberies and druggings have been known to happen here in the past in Lapa. You're also not too far away from Pedro de Sal, and this is known as the birthplace of Brazilian samba. So you come here on a Monday night and there is a famous Monday night samba party here. Also, staying in Centro means you're not far away from the Celeron steps, the famous steps that you see on the screen here. But the two disadvantages of staying in Centro, firstly, as I alluded to before, it can get sketchy at night. I would not recommend walking around Centro at the night time. Secondly as well, you're quite far away from the famous beaches of Copacabana and Ipanema, so you will need to take a metro to get down there. If you stay somewhere near Carioca metro station, that would be my recommendation if you are going to stay in Centro. Now, if you are from Rio, or if you know Rio very well, do comment below what your favorite neighborhood is in Rio. Where would you recommend tourists to stay when they are coming to visit Rio? What would be your opinion? Also, if you have booked to come to Rio soon, do let me know which neighborhood you are staying in and why you chose that neighborhood. Or if you've never been to Rio and you've never even considered coming to Rio, also comment below which neighborhood takes your fancy the most after watching this video. It will be interesting to know. If you have found this video useful, do hit the like button right now and make sure you do subscribe to my channel for more travel content.